Good morning and welcome to the new episode of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. It's a common political practice as well as social practice. Give the dog a bad name and hang him. And nowadays a new sort of bullying tactic is used, and that is in the age of political expediency, political correctness. That is characterize any statement of anybody as a hate speech. And voila, you let loose a tempest. It is seen very often that we castigate honest and logical difference of opinion as a hate speech. We often ignore that what somebody else might be quoting is just echoing an opinion of that body. We have also stopped deeming humor to be an essential part of life, and any cartoon is deemed to be something derogatory, blasphemous, horrible, politically incorrect. In fact, any innocent action is fit to create disturbance, cause tension, and make life hell for any citizen. As a matter of fact, the very word hate speech is a misnomer. A difference of opinion is not a hate speech. Quoting somebody to condemn him, somebody said something long back and I quote that and you call it a hate speech, that's absolutely not proper. And we saw this happen recently in India when Nupur Sharma, who was till recently a spokesperson of the ruling party, should not have been there because she recklessly tested the limits of her speech. Yet many people, including most liberals, believe that the abuse of the free speech leads to tension and should be labeled as a hate speech. What a mistaken notion. Now, her remarks about Prophet Muhammad were the trigger, but not the cause of the outrage in Muslim countries, and also among the Muslim community in India. They were not the cause. They were the trigger, all right, but not the cause. The cause, if any, is in the hadiths, which she had quoted. And another cause was the sustained, relentless traducing of campaign against Islam or anything Islamic, be it the Mughal monuments made during the Muslim rule or anything else. And these speeches are like the cartoons that were made in France, Charlie Hebdo. And then you remember how much of bloodshed was there. So cartoon is something to be relished. But I am aware that there are two communities, one is the Muslims, the other the Sikhs, who cannot tolerate any humorous, innocent humorous comment about their leaders, about their teachers, about their religious masters. Okay. Others should be careful not to do it. If they are sensitive, let them be. But to cause bloodshed, is that not something horrible? Does it not go against the teachings of the Sikh gurus or the Muslim prophets? Prophet Muhammad said, killing one innocent person is equal to killing the humanity. And when the riots take place, how many innocent people are killed? And the people responsible, the protesting, are the people who are criminals and sinners. So propaganda and campaign are in fact the consequences of all actions. And they have made the case of people getting lynched in the name of some idea Violence and discrimination is repeated, and media in fact promotes all that. They provide oxygen. If the media was to just ignore a couple of protests, you can be sure they will not be repeated. But then some rogue surveyor sees, okay, this man protested and he became an MLA, he became a minister, he became powerful, so why should I not do it? And then the cycle starts. At the heart of Nupur Sharma's issue is blasphemy. And the question, should blasphemy be allowed in India, a liberal democracy? The short and correct answer is yes, it should be allowed. It's my difference of opinion. But then, I know some people will call it a hate speech. They'll call it anti-Muslim or anti-Sikh. No, it's not. If blasphemy is disallowed, then countries like India would have to ban a lot many books and silence every debate on any subject that touches upon religion. There are 100 religions and cults in India. So you cannot discuss anything logically, scientifically, question any belief, right or wrong. Even child marriage you cannot discuss, because some religious leaders married young infants. I'm not naming anybody. To begin with, let's take that case of Swami Dayananda Saraswati, 1824 to 1883. A great movement, let me tell you. Arya Samaj was the biggest reformative movement in Hindu religion. And the founder of Arya Samaj was a bitter critic of the rituals, superstitions that have been the bane of Hindu society. Absolutely. For centuries, Hindu society has been degraded because of the meaningless rituals, endless rituals, as well as host of superstitions. And the Prime Minister Narendra Modi also extolled him for this and for his great book, Satyaras Prakash, where Swami Dayananda wrote very clearly that idolatry is a dharma. Now, for millions of Hindu devotees who believe in idolatry, who have idols in their homes and their temples and go and worship them, prostrate before them, that means they are irreligious. So this is violating the Hindu religion. This is blasphemy against Hindu gods and goddesses. Swami Dayananda's book should be banned. If I have to go by the hate speech people, because Prime Minister himself is guilty of quoting Dayanand's book, his magnum opus, Satyaras Prakash. Would it also mean that Arya Samaj should be stopped from disseminating the ideas and the concepts of Swami Dayananda? If that happens, that would be the worst thing that can happen. Because he was a great reformer. He was to Hinduism what Protestantism was to Christianity. Then, hundreds of years ago, the great poet, Saint Kabir wrote, and I am translating it, laying rock upon stone is a mosque made. On this climbs the muezzin to make the call to the heaven. Is the Lord deaf? No. Calling muezzin's call, azan, and calling God deaf. It is highly offensive. By any reckoning, it is deeply offensive to Islam. Kabir also ridiculed idolatry, saying that if worshipping stones can lead to communication with Lord, he should worship a mountain. Why a stone only? It's offensive to Hinduism. Though Kabir, a saint, revered both by Hindus and Sikhs and Muslims, his writings should be banned. Bulle Shah, the great Sufi poet, says that if by bathing in the rivers you can get salvation, then all the fish should be salvation against Hindu religion. So it should be banned. I can quote ad nauseum, but would we do it? You remember the German philosopher Nietzsche, the greatest of philosophers of all times, should also be banned because of his visceral disdain for Christianity. In his book, The Antichrist, note the name of the book he wrote, it's Antichrist, and he wrote, among other things, Christianity remains to this day the greatest misfortune of humanity. So, 2 billion Christians in the world, their feelings are outraged, it's a hate speech. Ban Nietzsche, ban his books, burn his books. Make his name, using his name, a criminal offense. The way you banned swastika. He also said Christianity stands in opposition to all intellectual well-being, as if all the intellectual work done by the Christians was a contradiction in terms. And then he goes on to say another thing. Since Christianity is inherent in since sickness is inherent in Christianity, it follows that the Christian spirit of faith must be a form of sickness too. No, nothing can be more derogatory and humiliating, but still, does it mean that Nietzsche's philosophy should be banned and the people who read books should be imprisoned? Should the university stop courses on Nietzsche and his philosophy? No, nobody in his right mind would favor restrictions on the books and teachings, but that's what's happening. You are banning books of the old, you are changing the terms Tom Sawyer. Imagine it. Uncle Tom's Cabin. Excellent books. You are banning them or trying to delete them, rewrite them. And this is happening despite the fact that the views of those people can be blasphemous. The use of the certain words can be in the modern sensibility unacceptable. But that does not mean that they are ban-worthy. What moral or legal right can be employed to penalize the lesser mortals of the same? So the widespread global reaction to Nupur Sharma's remarks seems to be more against the reported discrimination against Muslims in India rather than our own views. And this was created by Western media and Islamic media, fundamentalist media, not the real Islamic. They still have very good relations. And I wonder if a similar remark made by a BJP leader, say, in 2013, would have occasioned such an intense response from the Muslims all over the world now. It is because BJP is ruling and the so-called liberals and the Western media are allergic to Modi and BJP. So Nupur Sharma was made the sacrificial goat. But should hate speech be hateful simply because it's made by somebody who is politically opposed to you? The reaction is against hate, should be against hate crimes, not hate speech. Because there is no such thing as hate speech. Especially when it's a quote, especially when it's an honest difference of opinion. Honestly, it's nothing but an expression of one's thoughts. In fact, the very term hate speech is problematic. When someone uses this term, you can be sure they presuppose their own graciousness, superiority, that they alone know what is true, good and beautiful. How can XYZ understand my thoughts, my ideas? As I said, this my difference of opinion does not mean that others have a right to express me. For example, I had a series about the facts of Queen Elizabeth, and somebody said, why? Do you have some colonial hangover? I said, no. It's a part of history. And she's the queen. And rather you are being dishonest because you have taken an oath of loyalty to the queen and her successors. So you are wrong. So when someone uses the term hate speech, they are assuming a sense of superiority, sense of being gracious, sense of being good, sense of being beautiful, sense of being loving. The reality is they're the most hateful creatures themselves. They're full of jealousy and envy. They're full of inferiority complex. They might think that they are blessed with cognitive faculties and realize Satyam, Shivam, Sundaram, the truth, the beauty, and the godliness. The problem is there's such a variety of grandees, and many with the different viewpoints exist in the world today. From the left point of view, anything said by a conservative is hate speech. For the conservatives, anything said by the left liberals is hate speech. Whatever I don't like is hate speech, because there are no standard objectives by which hate speech can be defined. How can you define hate speech? It is worse than a flawless concept that hate speech is a non-concept. And that's the main reason. It's no more permanent. But then Galileo, Bruno, Socrates, they all suffered because of the so-called phenomena of assumed superiority which ascribed hate speech to the others. Now, those decrying hate speech are in fact the biggest criminals. They are in fact trying to curtail free speech. But the right to the freedom of expression has to be absolute. It cannot be partial. It can be limited by red lines. And if they should be according to the law. Period. If they are allowed, they tend to proliferate. And they will continuously squeeze the realm of freedom, to the extent that no such realm is left, only a point remains. And mathematical speaking, a point is without any dimension, it's notional. So, notional, like Article 19 of the Constitution, which says, all citizens shall have a right to freedom of speech and expression. Thus there was an amendment in Indian Constitution. All reasonable restrictions of the speech pertaining to the interest of the sovereignty and integrity of India and the security of state would be the restraining powers. And the friendly relations of foreign countries, public order, decency, morality. Now, who would decide decency and morality? The Muslims are very justified when they say hijab is a part of their conception of decency and morality. What right have got the Hindus got to object? Or the Christians got to object to hijab? No way. Hindus believe that covering the head of the women is morality. The Christians believe that when you go to a superior, you remove your head, that's the morality. So that differs. And then we want to impose all that. Over the years we have seen a variety of other restrictions have also been placed on free speech. Anything that allegedly hurts the sentiments of someone or somebody, or some community or race, they face censorship. And in such a milieu against hate speech and the use of hate speech further curbs the freedom of expression. And I pity the day, because this is a path to slavery, mental slavery. This is a path to autocracy. This is a path to dictatorship. This is a path to dehumanizing a human being. So stop this crusade of so-called hate speech to terrorize innocent expression and human freedom. Thank you.